There's a fire, but no fire brigade. So tonight we losing this fight. Oh, so tonight is.
Hey, what's up guys? I'm the Black Cuber, and this is part 3 on how to solve Rubik's Cube blindfolded. Let's get started. Okay, solving Rubik's Cube blindfolded, again, like I told you, is not difficult, and in this part tutorial, I'll be explaining parity, how to memorize, cycle breaks, twisted corners, and flipped edges. So let's go ahead and just get started with part 3. So we're going to go ahead and start off things with parity. Parity, like I told you, is the RA perm, I think, which swaps these two and these two corners. I use the lefty version. You may not use the lefty version, but it swaps these two and these two. I know there's like some RU, something like that, algorithm that you can use, but you don't have to use that specific algorithm. But it has to be the RA perm, swaps these two and these two. And the way you recognize parity is if you have an odd number of edges and an odd number of corner targets. So like what I mean by that is if you have, let's say you finish your, hold on, let me give you an example. Okay, I can't really find a good example. You're just gonna have to watch my walkthrough solves, and hopefully you can understand parity there. But once you finish memoing your targets, if you have an odd number of them, meaning like if they're not even, then you just have to do a Y prime, RA perm, and then rotate back. That's all you have to do. It's really easy, but since I can't find a good example right now, just wait for watch part 4, which is a couple of walkthrough solves with and without parity, so you understand it. But if you have an odd number of corners, as soon as you finish your edge targets, immediately go to Y prime, RA perm, rotate back, and then finish your corner targets. That's not confusing at all, and you may get confused by that because I didn't explain it in detail, and for good reason. I just can't find a good enough example. So on part 4, I'll be giving a bunch of walkthrough solves that involves parity, so you guys understand that. But it's not difficult to do at all. Like, try it for yourself. Okay, now how to memorize it. This was something that was requested to me by, I posted on my story the other day, some things that you want me to talk about as far as part 4 goes, so that I can like cover it in this series, and y'all will be able to understand it. There is not enough lighting in this room. Anyways, so the way you memorize, you can use one of two things. I believe Noah Arthurs teaches the story method, which is where you create images of stories using letter pairs of 2. So let me give you a quick example. Alright, here's my orientation, white top, green front. So our first one is Q and then E. So I'll probably think of queen. And then this is our buffer, so we need a break into a new cycle. So this one's just twisted, that one's flipped, sorry, we'll leave that alone. We'll go and go to R. R needs to go to N. So I'll probably think of right now. And then N needs to go to C, and C needs to go back to H. That's our cycle. So probably think of CH. I'll probably think of cast. So queen right now has a cast. Stuff like that, you get it? And then that's basically what that is. Or you can use the Roman rooms technique that I used whenever I first started blind solving. What the Roman rooms technique is you throw everything into a bunch of rooms. I actually have a separate video that's going to be online soon. It's the Roman rooms technique, how to apply it, how to get rooms. The Roman room technique I think is pretty cool. So you just throw things around in your house and you walk around in your memory palace, and then you recall those images. So our first one was QE. So I think when I first started, I had an image in my car. So I'll probably throw the queen in my car, you get it? No, that makes sense, sorry. So I start at the beginning of my driveway, and then I'll throw whatever image I have into my car, and then at my doorstep, and then periodically around the house, and then I'll recall all those images. I have a separate video made on on the Roman rooms technique if you want to use that. It should be up hopefully tomorrow. I'm gonna try making it tomorrow, but I want to be able to finish this tutorial too. But anyways, so try scrambling a cube and try making a story out of the images right now. I think that's what's best. And if if you can't, then I'll link you to a video on a good memorization techniques for solving this blind. I'll link in the description below. You can check that out. But yeah, you just try making stories and letters out of them, and if you still have questions, I guess just come back. I don't know. Now on to cycle breaks. Cycle breaking is a thing that confuses a lot of people, and it makes sense why. No, everyone hates cycle breaks. I hate cycle breaks. Like, in fact, if I get a scramble that has like way too many cycle breaks for edges and corners and has parity, I'll just DNF it because that's just way too much, and I don't like cycle breaks. No one does. But the way cycle breaks works is you finish one whole cycle and then you move on to another one that hasn't been touched. And here's an example with this cube. So our first one is QE. That's okay, that's already a cycle, but this one is our buffer piece, so we have to break into a new cycle. So the way I know which cycles haven't been touched is I'll place my fingers on them. So these two haven't been touched, these two have been touched, so that means all these other ones haven't. So we'll go ahead and swap to C. So C needs to go to H, and so CH, H needs to go to T, and T needs to go back to I, which ends that cycle. So the ones we've already touched are these two, and that one. So that means all of these three haven't been touched yet. So we'll go ahead and go to this one. This one is X. X needs to go to K. K needs to go to P, and P needs to go back to X. So these three are that own cycle. So the ones that haven't been touched yet is this one, and then I like to leave this one alone for the end because it's just flipped. And like I told you before, the way you flip it is you just go to one target and then go to the other. It's easy. That's cycle breaking, and I'll just go ahead and show this as an example. So our first one is Q, next one is E, and that ends our cycle. So I said we were going to go to C and then H. So C and then H. If you guys are unfamiliar with my setup moves and stuff, in my execution tutorial, the one before this one, I have a list of all of my personal setup moves and stuff for that, so you can check that out. Then this one needs to go to T, and then back to I. And that ends that cycle. And I said we were going to go to X, I believe. So we have X, K, PX. So X, K, P, and then X. And that ends that cycle. And then that was it. And what we had, these two are twisted. Okay, I didn't even see that. That would have been DNF. So like I said, just to flip this one, we'll go to this one, and then go to that one. That's how you flip it. And then I forgot about this one, which is S, and then which is W. That's cycle breaking. Try it for yourself. Just place fingers on the pieces you want to, that you've already cycled and have remembered, and then after that, then that's how you cycle breaking, and that's how you remember what pieces you needed to cycle and how you've cycled. Okay, let's just move on now. I've actually had a request about corners again because some people didn't understand corners fully, and I get it. I had a trouble with my corners first too. So this piece right here is your buffer. Whichever piece this needs to go to, it needs to go to right here. So this piece will always go right here once you do the Y perm, but without the F and F moves at the beginning, the F and F prime moves. So whatever this piece needs to go to, you have to make it stick right here. And again, in my execution tutorial, I explain all my setup moves and stuff like that and how to do corners. So if you haven't, check that out in part 2. So this part here, this piece, needs to go right here to V. V needs to go to W, and W is our buffer, so we have to cycle break. So we have V and then W. That's our buffer. So we'll go ahead and do I, and then U, and then F. and that's we have to cycle break again. So V, Y prime, W, that's our buffer, so we're going to go to I, and then U, and then F. And then we have to cycle break one more time, so we'll go ahead and go to B, X, Q. So B, X, Q. Again, I have all my setup moves in my execution part tutorial. That cycle breaking, I wanted to cover that mainly above all else because that's what gets people a lot. Parity is not difficult. Like, it literally isn't difficult. And again, in my walkthrough solves in my next video, check that out. I'll have all my setup moves and whatnot there. I mean, not setup moves, I'll have all my I'll have walkthrough solves there, and just cover some topics that you may not understand from this video. So if you still have questions, leave them in the description below or DM me at the Black Cuber, and I'll be sure to answer them and then put them in my next part tutorial. I didn't want this to be quick or short or something like that. It's just I only have a limited space and storage and stuff like that, which is why my videos are kind of short. But so I went through flipped edges and twisted corners. Twisted corners are literally the exact same thing. Twisted corners are the same thing as flipped edges. Just find the one you want to twist. So I want to go to K and then V. So K and then just V. Like, you just twist it like as a regular letter. It's easy. It's not difficult. I explained over twisted edges, flipped corners, parity, cycle breaking, and how to memorize it. Again, I'll have a tutorial on the Roman rooms technique. I have it on my list of videos I want to make. So you'll be able to check that out soon on how I memorized it. I don't use the Roman rooms technique right now, but I'll teach you guys in my next part tutorial. But just try using letter pairs to memorize. And again, I'll give you guys an example of that in my next part tutorial. I'll link a video to a really good how to memorize blend video by Noah Arthurs. He actually explains it pretty well. And yeah, that was part 3. I hope I didn't confuse you or stuff. But as far as order wise go, you have to start with edges first and then corners. If you do corners first, you're gonna have to do the parity beforehand, and that's just gonna confuse a lot of people. It's extremely confusing, and it's just better if you just start with edges first and then corners. Unless you get like really good.
If you get like really good, then you can start edges, corners first, and then edges. I think if you truly wanted to. But
that's blind solving. I'm pretty sure I didn't cover or go into detail as much as I wanted to or should have. So if you're confused, I get it, but just DM me and I'll probably try my best to answer them as best as possible. But yeah, this is that was just how to solve Rubik's Cube blindfolded part 3. If you enjoyed it, please give me a like. I guess I don't really beg for likes and stuff, but yeah. Alright, y'all, have a good day. Thank you so much for watching.